Google is math, okay? And when I say that, what I mean, let me move this, that Google does not hire people to read everything on the internet and decide which is better or which is worse. But Google cares very much about making sure that its searchers, its users are happy. Something like 80% of Alphabet, Google's parent company, something like 80% of their revenue comes from ads. So if people aren't seeing the ads, Alphabet doesn't make any money. So Google's free service, search, is paid for by getting people to use it and see and click on ads. So Google cares very much about keeping its users happy, keeping its search quality results high. Okay? So the way that we keep a searcher happy is by serving them URLs, websites that answer their search query. Okay? And what that means, sometimes we call this open book SEO. If we have a keyword that we want to rank for, we do not need to guess how to rank for that keyword. Okay? Google will tell us. If we type that keyword into Google, then Google will show us the 10 best pages on the internet that answer that query, what all of its searchers are looking for. Okay? So to keep this in mind, some people imagine Google to be a computer program with a bunch of if-then statements, and we know that's not true. What Google actually is, it's a machine learning algorithm with a goal maximizing program. So it basically is trying to maximize its searchers' happiness, and it's measuring searcher happiness by engagement, and it's doing that by playing with all of the variables that Google can see on a website. Okay? So it's trying a bajillion, that's the technical term, it's trying a bajillion different things and seeing how they impact the goal. Things that improve user engagement, improve the goal, they're kept. Things that make the goal worse are thrown away. So, you've probably seen articles on the internet, the 200 ranking factors or 300 ranking factors or whatever. We know that Google doesn't look at 200 or 300 or 400 factors. Google looks at every single infinitesimal thing on your website to decide, based on its data that it has had over the years, if that website will make its searchers happy, okay? So the result of that, and Google search engineers have said this over and over again, they cannot tell why one URL is ranked above a different URL. The search engineers do not know with specificity why a given URL is ranked where it is. Google is doing it, Google's algorithm is doing it on its own. So the question then, if there's a search query that you want to rank for, how do you rank for it? Well, open book test, right? You do what's already ranking well, but just do it a little bit better. So we're going to base what we do on what the websites that are already ranking are doing, okay? So what that means is if we type this query into Google and we see a bunch of e-commerce websites, a bunch of e-commerce category pages, we know that we're not going to be able to rank a blog post for that. And it's not that Google doesn't want a blog post for those searches. It's that Google's users want e-commerce category stores. Those are the websites that they're engaging with, that they're interacting with. So Google is going to show more and more of those. And the vice versa thing is true. If you have an e-commerce store and you want to rank in category page, but you type that search into Google and all of the results are blogs, it's not going to work, right? You're not going to be able to rank something that is different from what Google is already showing. Okay, so that's where we say your content needs to be written for Google, okay, and also for searchers, but if it's not written for Google, then you'll never rank at all. Google's algorithm is incapable of reading anything. And as I mentioned, right, Google doesn't have employees reading content on the internet. It's judging the content with its algorithm. And it's likely something similar to a content called LSI, latent semantic indexing. It is not that. This is an outdated concept. So Google is using something much fancier, more modern than this. But LSI is a way to think about how Google can tell what content is about just using math. So it's trying to figure out what your content is about. And doesn't want you to just keyword stuff all over the place. So it uses something similar to LSI keywords. So let me give you an example of what an LSI keyword is, right? So they're not synonyms. So attorney and lawyer, that's an example of synonyms. LSI, they're not keywords we're trying to rank for. So for attorney and lawyer, some LSI examples would be courtroom, trial, settlement, judge, decision, binding, contract, big boat, right? They're things that you're going to talk about if you're talking about attorneys or lawyers. Let me give you another example. So say you want to rank for Star Wars, okay? Now that's very competitive. That's a very competitive search term. And if you jam the keyword Star Wars in there 50 times, that's not going to be enough. But the LSI keywords, right? Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Darth Vader, the Death Star, Jedi, Jar Jar Binks, sure, Mark Hamill, and so on and so forth. And those are the LSI keywords where Google has analyzed the entire internet of content and figured out that content that talks about Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and Darth Vader is actually about Star Wars. Okay, so that's similar to how Google's algorithm is probably working. So once we do that and we write for Google, we write for Google's algorithm to make sure it knows what we want, what we're talking about, then Google uses external links as a quality signal, right? Because Google is math, it can't tell if something is of a quality that I wrote, something is of a quality that ChatGPT spit out, or something was written by Ernest Hemingway, right? So these external links is a sign of quality. Some other website, an independent website that you don't own, that you don't control, decided to link to your URL, to your content, that's a sign to Google that you must have good content, okay? So those links combined with using LSI keywords is the fundamental of how we do SEO. Move that again. Let me just move it down here. Maybe this will work. Okay. So, and what Google is doing is it's looking at the content that is already ranking well, the content that is making its searchers happy, it has user engagement data with, and it's analyzing the word usage, word patterns, word structure in that content that's already ranking well and comparing that to your content. And if you're way off, you're never going to rank. Okay? So it's deciding, hey, how close is your word patterns, your word usage to the content that Google knows is making its users happy? How many links do you have to determine that it's good quality content? And is your content comprehensive? How is the topical relevancy? And we can add that here. And topical relevance. That's an important factor also, okay? And if you check all these boxes, then you're going to get to the first page. And once you're there, it's going to use user engagement data to verify all of these signals were accurate, that you didn't fake all of these signals, which you can do, but it's very hard to fake user engagement data. So we call this the Google dance. So Google puts you on the first page almost as a trial. And it's going to see how your user engagement metrics are. So it's going to put you to the first page, it's going to bring it back down. It's going to put you on the first page, it's going to bring it back down. It's going to put you on the first page, it's going to bring it back down. It's going to do that a little bit if you got those other signals correct to see how happy you're making its users. And if you're not making them happy, it's going to bring you down and then leave you down. If you're making the users happy, especially happier than the content that's already on the first page, you're going to stay there. Okay, so I've said it many times here. Let's see if I can set a record for it. Google cannot read. So the goal of your content is to convince Google that it will make its searchers happy. Then a quality external link will show Google that your content is good. Then building topical relevance to show Google you have expertise. And finally, at the end of the day, when Google puts you on the first page, your content actually needs to make its searchers happy.